Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
This is Patrick Riggins with the Patrick Riggins Show. Along with Tori here, right next to me. Not doing the time warp this time, though. Doing more of the schism with Tool here.
Yeah, you can't do the time warp to Tool.
No.
You can try, but you're going to look like an idiot.
They're going to think you're hearing other music in your head.
And then they will take you away and put you up somewhere.
Yeah, that's what we need to play on
They're
here.
Coming to take me away.
Nervous Norvis, wasn't it? Is he saying that? Nervous Norvis?
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah, boy, everybody's going, yeah, he's a little over 20.
What are they talking about?
Yeah. All right.
Hello, Fada.
Yeah, more, exactly. I had the whole record of that.
I did too. Looney Tunes. It was on 8-track. That dates my age. I had it on 8-track. Bought brand new. My mom bought it for me brand new off 8-track. It was called Looney Tunes. It had like Hello, Mudda. And
had all the funny things. They're coming to take me away and what was it? Transfusion.
You had the same Westworld, yeah.
Never, ever going to speed again.
Was yours on 8-track?
No, it was on vinyl.
Mine was. 8-track tape kids are things that we used to have when we were young.
Yeah.
When old people were young.
Back when MTV played videos.
It was before MTV.
Well, it was before that, wasn't it?
It was before cable, in my case, and Seymour is when we had 3 channels. And
we had the UHF stuff.
Yeah. Snowy.
All right, this week we have a bunch of stuff going on. There was some more criticism of Obamacare this week, and this time it came from an unlikely source, mainly Democratic governors. At least 7 of these governors have been hesitant about giving a commitment from their state to expand their Medicaid program to extend coverage to people with incomes below or near the poverty line. Oh, I've got Tory stuff floating around my head now. One of them is the governor of Montana, Brian Schweitzer, who, as I said, is a Democrat, and released this statement last Wednesday. Quote, unlike the federal government, Montana just can't print money. Why, with him saying that, I would think you'd listen to this show, as evidenced by this quote from me.
Governors or mayors who are not getting the kind of help that they have in the past from the federal government and who don't have the same kind of flexibility as the federal government in dealing with fewer revenues coming in.
Yep. Those state local governments, they just don't have the same flexibility as the federal government. And what is that? Well, the feds, they just crank up the printing presses and print more dollars. There you go. And you heard that from the Montana governor. Montana just can't print money. Governor Schweitzer also added that, quote, we, meaning his state in Montana, have a budget surplus and we're going to keep it that way, unquote. One of the dangers of the law is the adding of an estimated 84,000 people to Montana's Medicaid program, effectively doubling its size and running the state's share of the costs up to $71 million. One of the quiet proponents of all this mess are the hospitals, which are chronically burdened with the cost of treating the uninsured. Hospital associations agreed to help fund the law by accepting various cuts to their reimbursement rates with the expectation that they would be more than compensated by the money from patients newly insured through Medicaid. Bruce Rubin, the president of the Florida Hospital Association, says that now hospitals worry they will be stuck with only the downside of the bargain. Again, that's and if no one has told him, that's what happens when you make a deal with the devil, i.e. the government. Matt Salo, the director of the National Association of Medicaid Directors, which that just tells you, do we even need a National Association of Medicaid Directors? But anyway, he said, quote, if you're dealing with a high number of uninsured people and your payments from other sources go down, you have no way to cover that unmet cost. He also predicted
that hospital representatives will soon be directing a lobbying blitz at governors and state legislatures, which in most states will be deciding whether or not to expand Medicaid in their particular state. The White House notes that the federal government will pay the full cost of covering the newly insured in the first 3 years and never less than 90% after that. Now, Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal said the president needs to understand what makes this country great. In part is that we're not dependent on government programs. It seems to him like the president measures success by how many people are on food stamp rolls and government health care. That's not the American dream. You're so right, Governor Jindal. It seems like he may have been listening to this show as well, because I addressed this very topic just a couple of weeks ago.
The American dream is defined by Obama as being a good and loyal citizen, dutifully going to work, paying your taxes, and living according to how the government wants you to live. And only then are you living the American dream. You see, it's much easier to change the definition of something than to change people. By changing the definition of the American dream, people will begin to work towards that instead of that pesky old definition we used to have of everyone having freedom and liberty and being created equal. If Obama and his little band of like-minded socialists can redefine the American dream so that the results and rewards are what define it, then only the fact that you have them will matter, not how you got them. If the government is the one providing that outcome, then people will start to see it as integral to achieving this new definition of the American dream. In doing so, the government will be just one step closer to defeating these ideas of freedom and liberty.
Exactly. So, what about the people saying we don't know how this healthcare situation will turn out because we've not tried it yet? To that I would say au contraire. In 1994, Tennessee started what was called TennCare by adding 500,000 new individuals to health coverage. By 2001, the system's costs were growing faster than the state budget, and Tennessee topped the nation in prescription drug use. By 2004, TennCare's drug benefits cost the state of Tennessee more than its entire higher education program, with the budget for the TennCare jumping to $6.9 billion, which incidentally is 25% of the state's appropriations. At that time, a report from consulting firm McKinsey & Company projected the program's costs could hit $12.8 billion by 2008, which would account for 36% of the state's appropriations and 91% of new state tax revenues. At that time, Democratic Governor Phil Bredesen declared the report, quote, sobering, and rather than Tennessee face bankruptcy, he scaled back the program, dropping about 200,000 individuals in about 4 months. In 2007, he told the journal Health Affairs that the idea of TennCare had failed. No, this is not just an isolated case. The state of Maine tried a similar program in 2003, and by 2009, the uninsured rate among individuals still hovered around 10%. Effectively unchanged from when the program began. It wasn't without accomplishments, though. The taxpayers picked up an additional $155 million in debt, putting the state deeper into massive budget shortfalls. With all of this evidence, the liberals and some conservatives still say we need the government running our healthcare system. It is almost like listening to them argue that the Soviet Union's model was not wrong, just wrongly implemented. If only they can be in charge, then they can work everything out right. What they consistently ignore is that individuals can work these things out for themselves. That is the best way to make coverage available to the maximum number of people at the most inexpensive price. Besides, we can't afford it anyway. The Congressional Budget Office has estimated that the U.S. fiscal situation is unsustainable, with publicly held debt likely reaching 90% of GDP by 2020. The main reason we don't need the healthcare running, or the government running healthcare, is that it's just wrong, plain and simple. It is troubling to me that fellow Americans feel like I owe them a living. I owe them stuff. And if I don't want to pay for it, or if they don't want to pay for it, then I have to do it. But again, I've gone over this before, as we'll listen to real quickly here.
Stop asking your fellow citizens to pay for your life. And that is what you're doing with government-sponsored health care, or governmental anything. You are telling the taxpayers of this country that you cannot afford to pay for something, so now they have to provide it for you. And don't call up telling me your sob story on how your grandmother couldn't afford her health care, or your son has some disease which is bankrupting your finances. I'm sorry. Believe me, I'm truly sorry if something like that is happening to you or someone you know. But does that overrule my rights and freedoms? Does the fact that life is not fair, that things don't always work out here on earth, is that my fault? And if it isn't, then why am I having to pay for it?
There you go. And regular listeners to this show recognize all of this. But this show grows so quickly and has been growing so quickly, I like to refer back to this just so the new listeners will know where we're arguing from. You can't get around it. Life is not fair. And penalizing your fellow American citizens because of that is wrong. Now, if that hurts to hear, then Jack Nicholson has a few words for you.
You can't handle the truth.
There you go. The truth hurts, but that doesn't make it any less true. Anyway, we're coming up on the bottom of the hour. Again, just swept through that 30 minutes quickly. This is Patrick Riggins with the Patrick Riggins Show. We'll be back after a couple of messages with even more in the next half hour of the show.